Hello, everybody. Today we will be continuing our verse by verse Bible study in the book of Matthew, chapter 27. Matthew chapter 27, verse 1. Jesus is sent to Pilate. Verse 1. When the morning was come, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. Now, before I go to verse 2, I want to just point out something. Whenever you read the word counsel in the Bible, always take note on the context, because what's interesting about that word counsel, and that's a word that Catholics like to use for when they get together. Like the Council of Trent and things like that. Whenever you come across the word counsel in the Bible, it's always a negative context. Always. As a matter of fact, I don't want to give a percentage, but if I had to guess, about 95% of that time, 95% of the time, if I was to guess, when you see the word counsel in the Bible, it's usually a group of people coming together to counsel against the truth. And here they are, look at this. And the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus. That's against the truth, to put him to death. So every time you come across that word in the Bible, and we're going to see it here in verse 7 again, every time you come across that word, just look at the context and how strange that is. And it's interesting that any type of so-called Christian denomination would call their meetings a council, especially after reading the Bible. Anyway, verse 2, and when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Verse 3, then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? See thou to that. So right here, Judas repents and confesses to the priests, and he pays the priest. He casts down the silver. In verse 5 here. So Judas, he repents and confesses his sins to the priest. Now look at this, verse 5. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. Verse 11. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, thou sayest. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Verse 13, then said Pilate unto him, hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? And he answered to him, to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Verse 15, now at that feast the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Now, I want to stop right here, because Barabbas, if you look at that name, Bar-Abbas, so the name for Bar means son of. So, for instance, when you come across in the Bible where it says like Simon Bar Jonas, that literally means Simon, son of Jonas, and Abbas, it's that's father, whereby we cry Abba, Father. So the name Barabbas literally means son of the Father. So you have Jesus Christ, who's the true son of the Father, who was numbered with the thieves and transgressors, and he's up against Barabbas, which literally means son of the Father, and he is a literal thief and robber. And here, what's interesting about this, what we're about to read, is when they release Barabbas and hang Jesus and crucify him, that is literally a type of what Jesus did for us. Jesus the sinless, the true Son of the Father, died in our place. Just like he's about to die in Barabbas' place here, literally, he died in our place, literally, so we could be the sons of God. And just like Barabbas' name, Son of the Father. And so when Jesus took the place of Barabbas, that's a type of Jesus taking our place on the cross, because Barabbas, he was the one that deserved to go to the cross. And Jesus literally took his place. And Barabbas means Son of the Father. And Jesus Christ took our place so we can be the sons of God. So that's just so interesting, that name, how his name becomes a perfect type of what Jesus did for him and what Jesus did for us. Verse 17, therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas, or Jesus, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, have thou nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate saith unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. So here we go. We have in verse 24, Pilate admitting that he is innocent of the blood of this just man. He's admitting that Jesus Christ is just. And he's saying, I don't want anything to do with this. Verse 25, watch this. Look at what the people say. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and on our children. Now we're going to visit that in a little bit here. Because they said, his blood be on us and on our children. Whew, that's tough, because when you keep going on throughout history, the Jews, what happened to them in the with the Holocaust and everything for years and years and 2 millennia now, since they crucified the Lord Jesus Christ, their children and their children's children have been paying for it. Verse 26, then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Verse 27, then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers, and they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit upon him, and took the reed and smote him on the head. And after that they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him, and put his own raiment on him, and led him away to crucify him. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. And when they were come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull, they gave him vinegar to drink, mingled with gall, and when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. Verse 35, and they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, they parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. And sitting down they watched him there, and set up over his head his accusation written, This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Then were there 2 thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and another on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their heads, and saying, Thou that destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. Likewise also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and elders, said, He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, I am the Son of God. The thieves also, which were crucified with him, cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, This man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let be. Let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Verse 50, Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Now watch this. Verse 52 and 53. This is a resurrection that happens. A rapture, if you will. And it's only in these two verses spoken about in the whole Bible. It's not mentioned in Mark, Luke, or John, or anywhere else in the Bible. Watch this. Right after Jesus yielded up the ghost, watch this. Verse 52. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection. So this is out after the resurrection. And went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Wow. So after the resurrection, after his resurrection, it says, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Now with this, and then it just doesn't mention anything after that, just those two verses. Now watch this, verse 54 totally switches up the, sorry, I'm just like, it's so crazy reading this. But there's only two verses that even mention this in the whole Bible. And then God just switches up the context. Now when the centurion and they that were with him watching Jesus saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, Truly this was the Son of God. And many women were there beholding afar off, which followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering unto him, among which was Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's children. Verse 57. When the even was come, there came a rich man of Arimathea, named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. He went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre and departed. And there was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sitting over against the sepulchre. Verse 62. Now the next day that followed the day of the preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that deceiver said, while he was yet alive, after 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the third day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say unto the people, He is risen from the dead, so the last error shall be worse than the first. Verse 65, watch what Pilate says. Pilate said unto them, Ye have a watch, go your way, make it as sure as ye can. Pilate's like, you better make sure that thing is as sure as you can. I think Pilate believed Jesus. He says, make it as sure as ye can. Here we go, verse 66. So they went and made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. Wow, that's amazing. So, if we remember Hebrews chapter 9, verse 16 and 17, for where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator, for a testament is a force after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. The New Testament doesn't start until right now, the death of Jesus. So we are now in chapter 28. That was chapter 27. So the New Testament, there's only 28 chapters in the book of Matthew. We're on the last chapter. The next Bible study we do is the last chapter, chapter 28. And the New Testament literally just started right here in chapter 27. At the end of chapter 27 when he yielded up the ghost. And so when you're reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, That's still all Old Testament, literally in Matthew, all the way up to chapter 27. And then even after chapter 27, 28, you got the book of Acts after that. And even though that's New Testament, you still got to rightly divide, because Acts chapter 1, the first thing they say after his ascension is, wilt thou at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? They had no idea that he had just died for the sins of the world, because that was still a mystery that was revealed to Paul, that he had died for the sins of the world as a blood atonement. Now, it was prophesied, as we saw, all throughout the book of Matthew. But when he prophesied it, Peter took him and rebuked him, because he didn't know that it was going to be as a blood atonement for the sins of the world. He just heard Jesus say that I'm going to die, be buried, and rise again. But Jesus left out the fact that it was going to be as a blood atonement for the sins of the world. So Peter took him and rebuked him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, that these things should happen to thee. Peter didn't want him to die. He was thinking carnally. And that's why Jesus rebuked him and said, get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest the things of men and not after God. Jesus had to rebuke him for thinking carnally and not spiritually. But that was chapter 27. Lord willing, we will get to chapter 28 very soon. God bless, and see you next time, Lord willing.